Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem, not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And today we have a video that's been inspired by a request from CutiePie120048, who has asked that we have a look into how you can better map out and keep track of your storytelling, meaning your plot progression, your narrative themes, and your character arcs, because that's a whole lot to juggle, and the longer your story gets, well, the more complicated that balancing act gets as well. So let's have a look at some advice that we can give from Camille's Harem to help you guys out with keeping track of all of these things, your character progression, your thematic progression, and as well your overall narrative arc. My first bit of advice would be this. I want you to very literally map out the different things that you want to have happen within your story. Starting off first with the plot, where you say, okay, story starts here, and I want my story to end here. You then put on different sides of the paper, or as we did it back when we were in college, we took a massive whiteboard and we put on one side of the whiteboard where we wanted to begin and then where we wanted to end. Once you've done that, you realize, okay, I have all this space in between. What do I want to put there? And then you start putting in the big events that you already have in your mind that you want your characters to go through, what you want your plot to reveal, and all of this other stuff. You can put these as abstract ideas, or in boxes, circles, stars, what have you, bullet points. Once you have that stuff out there in the middle, I want you then to start sorting where it all goes. And what you're going to then get is you're going to get a messy looking roadmap that details how you get from point A, the beginning of your plot, all the way on over to point Z, the very end. You're going to get all of these different plot points, and you're going to be able to visualize, oh, that's where I want it to go. And even if you're not a visual learner, this is actually really, really good, because writing things out allows you to already then expose those ideas, to mull them over in a way that you really can't do just inside your head. There's some weird little magical transformation that overtakes our ideas when we speak them out loud, or especially when we write them down, and we can then see them again and again and again. It puts them into proper context, and then we're able to just fill in all of these gaps now with even more storytelling, because you're going to see all of these gaps between your boxes, your bullet points, and everything else like that, and you're going to then say, okay, so from point A to point B, this is what I want to have happen. From point B to point C, this is actually what I want to have happen. Point D, I don't know if I can actually keep point D. Do I axe it? Do I move it somewhere else? And then that way you're able to already see what works and what doesn't within your story. Now then, I know that this particular approach is very much an architect-writer approach. For those who are discovery/garden writers, where you basically just write and you see where your story takes you, this is still something very good to do, because even though you're going to mostly discover your story as you write it, you still want to know what are the big things that have inspired this idea. I know that I have some things I wish to do with my plot, so what am I going to do? So you write that stuff out and you're like, okay, that is my mile marker. I am going on a journey. That is my mile marker. That is my first pit stop. And I'm just going to discover my story along the way. And then you might discover that the journey completely takes you away from that pit stop and leads you somewhere else entirely, or it's a very interesting route to get to your very first pit stop. So once you have mapped out your story, and again, I mean that I want you to draw this, write it out. Don't just type out a bullet point list. Write and draw this out on a piece of paper, on a chalkboard, on a whiteboard, on a wall, what have you. Get it on out there. Once you have done that and you've looked over it, I want you to start inviting other people to come and have a look at your story. Take some time to then explain it out loud to people, and make sure that things make sense to other people and not just to you. This will really help you with figuring out what's happening with my story. Do my plot points make sense? What my characters are doing, does that make sense? Do their arcs make sense? Do the narrative themes that I wish to place right here make sense? And if you get the thumbs up and good feedback from other people saying, yes, this map actually looks good, then you finalize it. Now, once you have this map, you can either have a nice, beautiful, pristine copy, you can take a picture of it, or you might do what I do, which is then I go onto my computer and then I write out a very detailed outline for what the story should be. There's different ways that you can approach it, and really all of them are good depending on what best fits your style, whether just be taking a picture, having a nice, pristine copy of the map, or writing down notes. But you need to have a copy of this in some sort of form, so that way when you start writing, and you will be discovering your story, whether you are a garden or architect writer, you will be discovering parts of your story as you write. And you then can always refer back saying to, this is what I wanted to do with this character. This is what I wanted to do for this particular plot point. This is where I wanted this theme of my story to go in. Now, there's your setup. When it comes to the execution of your story, when you start writing, you want to make sure that you have very concrete mile markers for your characters, for your plot, and for your themes. Let's say I'm telling a story that is supposed to reveal why it is bad to steal from others. I know, a little childish, but within the story, I'd probably want to first establish that a character is a thief or is thinking about becoming a thief. And then I have a scene with them stealing and then with them suffering the consequences. I have mile markers that then say, okay, here's my mile marker to establish who the character is. This next mile marker is the scene where they will commit their theft. And then this mile marker is where they then experience the consequences, whether it be that they get caught and go to prison, or they feel just the crushing guilt of what they've done, or maybe they feel absolute euphoria, and I want to get kind of deep into why people really embrace this. And I then spend some time different mile markers establishing why this person stole something. Maybe they actually had a legitimate reason to steal because they're starving, or someone else really wanted something and they weren't able to afford it, so they thought they were doing something good. And then they feel really good about what they've done. They get away with it and they think, why don't I do it again? And so then I could have those mile markers that help to firmly establish when those moments should arrive within the story. And I can then think about how much time I want to give to these particular scenes and to this character development, to really addressing certain themes within the story. When you are writing, it's very, very easy to get carried away with character description or to get carried away with just a scene going on for so long because you're just having so much fun writing something out. But brevity is beauty within a story. It's power. So sometimes letting a scene run for too long can really bog it down. And that's something that I've had to struggle with because I love writing interactions with characters. Writing dialogue was one of the hardest things for me as an author getting started. But once I began to figure out my own way of writing character interactions and the likes, I just loved it so much I got carried away and those scenes would become overly long. Having those mile markers helps you to establish, okay, this scene must establish this. This conversation must establish this. These characters meeting must establish this. Keep it concise to the point, and then once you've done that, you'll find that actually there's plenty of little wiggle room to add in more juicy details, more dialogue, more character development. That's just what we do. We discover those moments as we write them, but we want to make sure that we're keeping concise and precise to the important points, the important mile markers that we have already established beforehand. Now, another thing that I want you to do is as you're writing, if you have any questions about what you are writing, like a character detail or a specific plot point, don't just write what you think is in the moment. Don't just be like, oh yeah, I think it was this. No. Go back, check your notes, check previous descriptions of characters, of settings, what have you, because it is so annoying in the editing process to go back and fix all of those mistakes. It's like a game of telephone. Let's say that you gave a character a very significant tattoo on their hand, on the back of their hand. Well, you then later on wrote it on the wrong side, on the wrong hand. And then in another page, you then change what the tattoo is. And eventually that tattoo might lose all of its significance, or it loses its original feel, which then communicated that significance, or you completely forget about it, which then leads to inconsistencies within the story. And so whether it was important or not, readers pick up on that and it takes them out of the immersion, takes them out of the experience of reading your story. So if you at any point, I don't care how good the flow of creativity is, if you get to a point where you're all like, oh, I don't actually know, well, I'll just fix it in post. Believe you me, if you go that route, you will be spending a long time fixing things in post. Your second draft will be a long, grueling slog. Your creativity actually really isn't going to go anywhere, and it doesn't take a whole lot of time to go back, check your notes, check your map if you've done things appropriately beforehand, to go pull up that picture, pull up that document, pull out those notes, look up at the wall, find out where you went right or went wrong, go back, quickly fix it, and then continue on. It really doesn't eat up as much time as you might fear. So again, I'm going to emphasize, take your time at the beginning as you're getting ready to write your story. Take your time to fully map everything out. Take your time with that map. Get feedback, get input, visualize things, put out all of those words and those ideas. As you begin to put together that map, you will be able to better visualize and comprehend what you wish to do with your own story. Then take notes, solidify what it is that you want to do. Firmly, concretely create those mile markers for yourself, whether it be for your plot, for your characters, for your themes, so that way you know how deep you wish to go into the story about theft. When do you want the consequences for thievery to finally fall on the main character, and for him or her to then realize what they've done is actually wrong, and to then correct their mistakes and then go on that path of redemption. Having these mile markers is absolutely essential. Now then, there will be times where you might then go back and the entire roadmap that you had created for yourself has to be thrown out. I have done that before. In fact, I'm actually doing that right now with one of my books. The original roadmap for some of the characters no longer worked for what I wanted to do with them. So I had to crumble it up and throw it out and start completely new. And you know what? That's absolutely fine, because it allowed me to now visualize what I shouldn't be doing with those characters in order then to better make, or to create a far better plot and character arcs for these characters. And then there are other times that by doing this, you then realize that the flesh of your story, all of the fun and the fluff, really doesn't fit. The bones are just fine. The skeleton of your work is actually really good. The foundation is nice, but everything else that you've been doing isn't good. So that way then you can scrap it all and return back to basics, return to the beginning, and rewrite the story the way that it should be. And in my experience, I've only been able to do that because I went through the mapping out process. So, Cutie Pie, if you wish to keep better track of your characters, of your plot progression, and of your themes, you want to make sure that you properly map it out. So that way you know when you should introduce a theme, when you should develop it, when you want everything to culminate, so that way the lesson of your story lands right. So that way you know, when should a character go meet his or her love interest? When should a character just feel that crushing defeat or depression? When should a character have a necessary victory in order to bolster them? Being able to see that is absolutely invaluable. And of course, being able to see how you wish your plot to unfold is really, really good, because you have a lot of great ideas, but sometimes there are some good ideas or some not good ideas that end up going in the wrong place and derail everything. When you can fully visualize what you wish to do, you can then properly order all of the events or remove the ones that will not be of a benefit to your tale. So that right there is my writing advice for how you can better keep track of your characters, your themes, and your plot progression. If you're watching this and you have your own questions for specific matters of writing, please let us know down in the comments below. We would love to be able to make videos and to make podcast episodes that specifically address concerns that writers have, because that's what Camille's Harem is here for. We're here to help other novice authors figure out all of the things that they need to know in order to make their stories the best that they can be. So again, please, if you have any questions, if you have anything that you would like us to do videos on, please let us know in the comment section below, and we will see about getting videos done specifically to address those kinds of questions, or we will see about putting together a podcast episode or maybe even a live stream in order to address those concerns, questions, and issues. So, if you have those, again, please write them in the comment section below. And once you've done that, if you haven't done so already, please feel free to subscribe, click the bell icon, so that way you will be notified for when we do release those videos addressing your comments. And in the meantime, if you're looking for more writing advice, please check out our other videos here on our channel. You can also head on over to our podcast, Camille's Harem, found on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, the works. We have writing exercises for you as well over at our Pinterest page. And of course, we would love for you to join our community of novice authors. Links for all of that and more are down in the description below. And until the next video, y'all, thank you for joining us on this adventure that we call writing, and tschüss.